Hello, friends. Ted Wilcox here again to bring you into another thrilling chapter in our continuing saga of magic, mystery, and the American century. But before we begin, here's Charlie Pulcher with a brief review of our last episode.
Last time, Mickey came face to face with an unlikely witness, Greta Rose Petunia Abigail Joshua Norton II and a half, a reclusive mythic hiding in a trash-filled Tenderloin alley, and the lone witness to Hallie Baptiste's terrifying abduction. Her account confirmed the worst: 2 hunters on motorcycles, a brutal killing, a woman taken by force, and the possible meddling of a god. As Greta's story came to light, Mickey realized the case was far bigger and far stranger than she'd ever imagined. And now, as Mickey turns her attention to a new danger moving through the city, we return to Joshua Norton Park, where whiskey is already late and running out of time. What happens next? We'll find out now.
This is the Mythic Chronicles. Entry 1. Crime Wave. Chapter 20. Whiskey walks into a bar. October 25th, 1951. I'm simply pointing out, Passenger continued in its unabashedly smug tone, that if you'd followed my advice from the beginning, you wouldn't have wasted so much time. Whiskey's expression darkened as he paced the glen where Hallie Baptiste had vanished. He should have been scouring the scene for any scrap of evidence, any clue, no matter how small, that might lead to her abductor. Instead, thanks to Passenger's incessant commentary, his mind was stuck on the 7.5 hours he'd lost after his meeting with George. 7 hours, 42 minutes, Passenger corrected. Lost forever. And if you continue to deny yourself food, you, like everyone else without a gift that replenishes their anima wells, will have to live as they do, as prey. Whiskey's frown only deepened as, annoyingly, he had nothing to counter with, giving Passenger more room to continue. Both your conversations with George and Isaiah led to more uncertainty than clarity. Yet despite the looming deadline, your stubborn adherence to the way left you weak and vulnerable. If only you'd listened to reason. Whiskey rolled his eyes. The best next steps were revisiting Hallie's last known location and the abduction site. Even with my gifts, trying to coax statements from bar staff closing up after last call, or combing through a week-old crime scene in a dark park full of bliss addicts would have been pointless. My best move was to wait until sunrise. Is that so? Passenger countered. And arriving 3 hours after sunrise is what, oh grand strategist? Maybe wasting 3 hours on frivolities like sleep instead of pushing forward with an investigation that could prevent an impending gang war makes sense because it's more dramatic? Just admit it, Kenichiro. You fell asleep. I never said I didn't fall asleep, Whiskey muttered, crouching as he examined a muddy rut. Truth was, he'd gone home planning to review the case files and wait for dawn. He hadn't expected exhaustion to drop him the moment he sat down. Passenger made a frustrated sound. If you acted like you were supposed to, you'd never have to sleep again. And don't think I haven't noticed how, when you do eat, you... Unwilling to argue, and knowing he couldn't win, Whiskey did the only thing he could. He cheated. Be quiet. Passenger's voice vanished mid-rant, finally leaving Whiskey with a little room to think. He exhaled, letting the silence settle before turning back to the scene. The ruts confirmed the report about motorcycles, but the churned-up ground made it nearly impossible to tell what was fresh from what wasn't. Then something caught his eye. The rut beneath his boot was deeper, cleaner, more defined than the others. He frowned, narrowing his eyes, and triggered vigilance. The world lurched as his perception sharpened. He wrinkled his nose at the faint, sour scent of rotting fruit, attributing it to the garbage scattered throughout, and turned his focus to the edges of the rut. "You see that?" he asked. He was answered by petulant silence. "Passenger?" "Oh, now I can talk?" it snipped. "You know, your lack of gratitude is—" "Passenger," Whiskey snapped, then winced as his voice cracked through the misty park. Gritting his teeth, he continued in his mind. I have neither the time nor the patience for your petulance. Keep this up, and I swear to all the gods, I'll find a way to revert you back to pulsing, vague emotional responses. Passenger pulsed the mental equivalent of crossing its arms and staring sullenly at the floor, but it replied, "The ground and trees here are dead. It's hidden by overgrowth, but there's a patch where nothing's growing. Looks like a trail." Whiskey crouched, nodding. "Leading that way," he murmured, pointing south. Passenger pulsed a thoughtful nod. "Out of the park. Follow it?" Whiskey scanned the churned ground and scattered trash. "Might as well," he said, and followed the trail of dead vegetation. As he walked, footsteps approached, and he released vigilance just as a woman emerged from the brush, moving along the same path. Thanks to regular patrols, the park wasn't as dangerous during the day, but a woman walking alone in this part of town still drew attention. This one was average height, with light brown, nearly golden hair, and sun-touched tan skin. Even beneath her modest skirt, blouse, and bomber jacket, her athleticism was obvious. She moved easily over the slick terrain, unfazed by the uneven ground. Whiskey tipped his hat and offered a polite smile as he stepped aside to give her room to pass. To his surprise, she stopped and met his gaze. Most people avoided eye contact. Not her. She didn't look away. Instead, she blinked once, then also stepped aside. "I insist," she said, gesturing for him to go ahead. Whiskey nodded, tipped his hat again, and continued down the trail, but something about her, the way she looked at him, stuck in his mind. Her hazel eyes, nearly golden, had locked onto him like an eagle sizing up prey. Even Passenger let out a slow hum. "What is it?" Whiskey thought. "It's likely nothing," but her aura spiked. It was quick, barely noticeable before she reined it in, but whatever it was strong. Whiskey stopped and turned to glance up the trail, but the woman was already out of sight. So he shrugged and continued on, stepping from gravel to the sidewalk, scanning the area for any trace of the trail, but the dead foliage ended at the park's edge. He triggered vigilance again, but by now the city had awakened. The streets were filling with people, cars, and the general chaos of the Tenderloin, making it difficult to pick up anything distinct. "Anything?" he thought. "Nothing specific," Passenger answered. Whiskey turned back to the park, catching one final whiff of the faint, sour, sweet smell from earlier. What am I missing? "No way to be certain until you get more information," Passenger said with another mental shrug. Whiskey nodded and pulled a small notebook from his overcoat. Flipping through it, he found the entry he needed and headed west on Eddy Street. After his talk with Jasmine, he was more attuned to the carnival decor strung overhead. But in the fog, the orange and yellow banners draped across the street lamps looked muted, almost brown. Navigating the growing foot traffic, he reached the closed doors of The Choice, the last place Hallie had been seen. Like many buildings in the Tenderloin, it was squat and gray. In daylight, stripped of neon glow and shadowed corners, it looked more like an abandoned husk than a working bar. The place was closed, so its staff could half-heartedly scrub away the previous night's wreckage, but persistent knocking and a flash of cash got a grumpy barback to let him in. Under harsh ceiling lights, never used during open hours, the stained wood and worn furniture looked even worse. The floorboards, oversaturated from years of spills, reeked of stale beer, cheap booze, and cigarette smoke. A little more cash earned him a pointed finger toward a man perched at the bar, smoking. Lean features and pointed ears marked him as elfin-blooded, though the dark goatee ruled out pure blood. Elves couldn't grow facial hair. He wore a sports jacket over a wrinkled shirt, penny loafers tapping the bar's footrest as he frowned over an open ledger. He must have sensed Whiskey's approach. Mid-sip of his Bloody Mary, he glanced up. The pen in his hand kept scribbling into the ledger on its own. His brow furrowed, and he crushed the cigarette, snatching the pen mid-stroke. "Damn it," he muttered. "Stupid fucking thing." Without looking up, he scratched out the error. Whiskey smiled. "We're closed." "Good morning. That one of those self-writing styluses?" The man blinked, clearly not expecting conversation, then glanced from the pen to Whiskey. It's a damned waste of money, that's what it is. What good's an accounting pen if it can't even get the math right? He tossed it across the bar, where it clattered to the floor. I knew I should have sprung for the Cloud 9 version, but like I said, we don't open till 11. I can't serve you till then. Whiskey shook his head. I appreciate it, but I'm not thirsty. He set his FBI consultant badge on the ledger. Just looking for a bit of information. The man studied the badge, then looked up, wary. Consultant? He asked. I don't want any trouble. Whiskey smiled, pulling out his wallet. I assure you, sir, it's nothing like that. He slid a $5 bill across the bar, making sure the man glimpsed the rest still inside. I'm investigating a missing persons case in conjunction with the FBI and SFPD. The man took the bill. If this is about that Negro girl again, he said, stuffing the cash into his pocket. I already told the cops everything I could. Whiskey raised a brow. You were here? I'm the manager, the man replied with a shrug. I'm always here. That night I was working the bar, too. Whiskey flipped open his notepad. Then you must be Mr. Peregrine Contrand. The man cringed. No one calls me Peregrine. It's Perry. Whiskey slid another $5 across the bar. What can you tell me about that night, Mr. Contrand? Thought of anything new since giving your statement to the detectives? Perry pocketed the bill and made a show of thinking. No, not really. Like I told the cops, the girl came in alone. Got picked up by Jordan, a regular. Bit of a player, but a nice enough guy for a Negro. They left together. Next thing I know, the cops are here with pictures, asking questions. Whiskey held his gaze for a beat, then nodded and tucked his wallet back into his coat. Very well, he said, turning to leave. Thank you for your time, Mr. Contrand. Perry's eyes widened, and he raised a hand. Wait. Whiskey paused. Yes? I didn't see anything, Perry said. I'm busy after all. But someone else might have. That caught Whiskey's attention. The police report hadn't mentioned any other witnesses. You're sure? Perry checked his watch, then turned toward the back. Hey, Connie! There was a shuffle, a muffled curse, and the clatter of something spilling. Pinche cabrón, a woman snapped. What do you want, Perry? I'm busy. Oh, good, you're in. Come out here. I just got in. I'm busy. Perry pinched the bridge of his nose and muttered, Jesus H. Roosevelt, before turning and yelling, I'm telling you, come out here now. More curses followed, but a few moments later, a woman with auburn hair, light brown skin, and a sour expression stomped into view. She wore a cheap swing dress with a white bolero jacket and clomped forward in scuffed Mary Janes. I swear to gods, Perry, I am not your damn coño to be summoned. Whenever... She stopped short, eyes locking on Whiskey. Oh, she said. Her expression shifted, chin tilting, posture sharpening, as she slid into something more guarded. Well, what's so important? This man here, Perry began, pulling a cigarette from the crumpled carton beside his ledger. Inspector Mononobe, Whiskey offered. Yeah, Inspector the inspector here's got questions about the night Jordan got killed. You were working that side of the club, right? Connie folded her arms. Yeah, she said coolly, snatching the cigarette from Perry's fingers before he could raise it. He scowled but didn't argue, reaching for another instead. Whiskey stepped forward, offering his badge. How do you do, ma'am? I was hoping you might answer a few questions. Connie glanced at the badge, then back to him, eyes sharp as flint. Oh, now I'm good enough to talk to? Last time I practically had to scream to get your attention. Here we go, Perry muttered. Connie's eyes flared. I told you there was something weird about those guys, estúpido, she snapped. I'm sorry, miss, Whiskey prompted. Castillo, Connie Castillo. Miss Castillo. He tucked his badge away and retrieved his wallet. So you gave a statement to the police? Course I did. What kind of person wouldn't do everything they could to help that poor girl? Whiskey nodded, offering her a $10 bill. I'm not sure, Miss Castillo, but for the sake of being thorough, do you mind going over it again? Anything stand out? Anything you might have missed? Connie's eyes flicked in surprise, but she took the bill and tucked it into her blouse. Her posture shifted, shoulders loosening. Yeah, something was up with those two. Like they were nervous or something. Scoffed Perry. Connie wheeled on him, but Whiskey stepped in before the moment unraveled. Why would you say that, Miss Castillo? She squared her shoulders. For one, I empathize with people. Unlike some, she said, shooting Perry a pointed look. Perry rolled his eyes and shot Whiskey a long, suffering glance, which Whiskey ignored as he reached for another 10. Can you be more specific, Miss Castillo? Whiskey asked, handing her the money. Are you talking about Hallie and Jordan? Yeah, she said, settling into her story. The girl was new, but Jordan? He was cool. Muy machismo, you know? Smooth with the ladies, at least the ones into pretty Negro men. But that night, something was off. He wasn't flirting, no real drinking, just quiet conversation. Every time I passed, he shooed me off. Then, they up and left. She shook her head, and left way more than the tab was worth. That's not like Jordan. He was a terrible tipper. Good thing he was hung like a... Thank you, Connie, Perry cut in. Apologies, Inspector. She's a bit rough around the edges. Better than a chupamedius pansy who doesn't recognize a good thing when he has one, Connie snapped. Whiskey cleared his throat and offered her another bill. That's all right. Earlier, you mentioned 2 other men. Connie took the cash with a smirk at Perry. Yeah, there were these 2 guys here. Perry, remember? The, leather vest guys? Perry squinted. You mean the bikers? The vampires? Whiskey arched a brow. You get a lot of vampires at the Choice? Connie snorted. Mister, this here's the tenderloin. Ain't nothing we don't get a lot of. Perry nodded. Vamps, shifters, low-level spellheads, we get 'em all. We don't advertise it, since it gives the regulars the heebie-jeebies, but we do serve some blood. Can't say no to paying customers, you know? Anyway, Connie said, these 2 were different. How so? They were strange, quiet, just ordered some blood and sat there. That doesn't sound too strange, Whiskey said. Yeah, but 3 hours? Never touched their drinks. Just sat there, still as statues. Didn't talk, didn't move. Long enough the blood started to clot. She gave a little shudder. I quit checking on them after a while. Gave me the creeps. They were intense. When did they leave? Whiskey asked. Before or after Hallie and Jordan? After, Connie said, eyes lighting up. Why, you think they did it? Connie, Perry snapped. What? I can't ask a question? Whiskey raised a calming hand. I'm not sure yet, Miss Castillo. Maybe. What did they look like? Anything stand out? He pulled out another 10. Perry jumped in. One was tall, greaser hair. The other was normal size, had short hair. Connie rolled her eyes. Pendejo, she muttered, giving Whiskey her own long-suffering look. One was white, big guy, broad shoulders, slicked back ducktail, dark eyes, bit of stubble, scar over one eyebrow. The other was white too, with salt and pepper hair, cropped short like a soldier. Handsome, except for a nasty scar on his neck. Both wore jeans, plain tees, and those leather biker vests. Whiskey handed her the bill. She pocketed it with a triumphant smile at Perry. Any markings on the vests? She tapped a fingernail against her teeth. I remember they had a devil or something on the back. Had some initials, but I can't remember. D something something? Sorry, that's all I got. Whiskey nodded, splitting the rest of his cash between them. Connie got the bigger share. Thank you both. Sure, any time, mister, Connie said. Yeah, added Perry. You sure you don't need nothing else? Whiskey paused. There was a tip-off the night Hallie was taken. Someone unstable sounding called it in. You know anyone like that? Regular around the park? They exchanged a glance. Sorry, Perry said. Unstable fits most of the blisters crawling around the park these days. Yeah, the place is turning into Blister Central, Connie agreed. You could try asking around the park. Might get lucky. Whiskey nodded, thanked them both, and headed for the door. The bar's relative warmth vanished the moment he stepped outside. Morning chill bit through his coat, and somewhere in the distance, a siren howled. He paused on the sidewalk, scanning the horizon. Thoughts? He asked quietly. You don't have time to chase addicts in the park, passenger said. So that's out. Agreed. Whiskey sighed. He didn't have the time or the manpower to track down the mystery caller. And with less than 3 days before the Saints ignited a war, he needed answers now. The biker lead's stronger anyway. Matches what I saw at the scene. But I'll need resources to dig into biker gangs with initials that might have started with a D. I need help, he muttered. But from whom? If Connie and Perry were telling the truth, and I don't think they were lying, someone in the SFPD had tampered with the report. Bruno had said all the right things, but I'd been betrayed before. And even if the detective wasn't involved, he could still be feeding information to someone who was. No, he couldn't go to him. That leaves one viable option, passenger said. Whiskey exhaled, glancing up at the thinning fog. Sunlight was just starting to break through in pale, silvery strips. He loathed the idea, but the FBI's national database was his best shot. With a last sigh, he turned toward his car. It was time to visit the bureau.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Mythic Chronicles. The story continues every Tuesday and Thursday. If you're enjoying the journey, please consider rating and reviewing the podcast. Your words might help bring more mythics into the fold. To listen ahead, unlock bonus content, and gain access to VIP Discord roles and behind-the-scenes updates, check out our Patreon, or visit us at SeanTLaffertyBooks.com. I'm Sean. Thanks again for being here.